In the Ukraine-Russian war, each new moon strengthens the victories of Ukraine and its humiliation of the Russian army. From March 1st, on the 1st of every month, the Ukrainian armed forces achieved historical successes against the Russian army. At the beginning of November, the Russian army went through hell. Ukrainian Special Operations units carried out the biggest attack on the Russian Navy in history, with a drone army at the weekend, and severely damaged the entire dominance of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. Satellite images revealed the great defeat of the Russian Navy against the Ukrainian drone army in Sebastopol. The Ukrainian drone army detonated the Russian Navy in the strategic Omega Bay in Sebastopol, that is, in their own lair. Ukrainian drones released legendary footage of the historic attack and the Russian Black Sea Fleet flagship Makarov, and satellite images of the situation at the Russian Navy port were also revealed. We will soon examine the striking details of this historical attack that ended the Russian domination of the Black Sea. This battle, which includes the epic victories of Ukrainian heroes, marks the period of collapse of Russian troops from February 24th. The Russian troops, who returned empty-handed from almost every front, began to lose power as a result of the risky and wrong decisions taken by Vladimir Putin. Currently, the Russian army, which has become very poor in terms of inventory, continues to use its last trump card in Ukraine. Most recently, the Russian administration approached the Iranian government for help with military equipment, procuring Iranian-made Shahed 136 unmanned aerial vehicles worth $20,000 apiece. The Russian army launched drone attacks in some parts of Ukraine, especially in Kiev. These treacherous Russian airstrikes mainly targeted innocent Ukrainian citizens and some cities in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin was acting in violation of the rules of war again, and Putin was directing these Russian airstrikes especially on Ukrainian public areas, because the Russian leader was ready to try any means to make a significant gain in the Ukraine war. But even though it took a lot of damage, the heroic Ukrainian people continued to support their army, and these Russian airstrikes cost Vladimir Putin dollars wasted. The Ukrainian heroes, on the other hand, enriched the inventory of their army with the military support packages provided by the USA and Europe. In particular, NASAM's air defense systems and legendary AGM-88 missiles, supplied by the US to the Ukrainian army, have become the apple of the eye of the Ukrainian army. Also, Zelensky's brave army had the potential to produce its own drones. The Ukrainian army, ready to create wonders with all these functions, was ready to sign an attack that will go down in history, and it was expected. The Ukrainian army managed to carry out its biggest drone attack so far in Sebastopol, one of the cities of Crimea. The Russian administration was confused and afraid of this attack. The first satellite images of the Sebastopol Bay, taken after the Russian Black Sea Fleet warships were attacked by unmanned sea vehicles of the Ukrainian army, were published on a social network. These broadcast satellite images almost turned the world agenda upside down. These shared satellite images recorded the Admiral Grigorovich-class frigate in the open sea. Within 5 hours, this ship docked with a mooring wall in Strelsk Bay in Sebastopol. And from this moment on, the heroes of Ukraine launched the massive drone attack. The submarine drones of the Ukrainian army had targeted the Russian Navy, and everything was going in favor of the Ukrainian army. Satellite images immortalized these historic Ukrainian drone attacks. On the same day as the massive drone attack by Ukrainian heroes, a video was published on social media networks showing a Ukrainian seaplane attacking the 11356R Admiral Makarov frigate, which became the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet after the Moscow missile cruiser was sunk by the Ukrainian Navy. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation acknowledged the damage to the Ivan Golubets Russian minesweeper, but did not confirm the damage to the Admiral Makarov. According to Russian defense officials, this massive drone attack by Ukrainian heroes was carried out by 7 autonomous unmanned watercraft and 9 unmanned aerial vehicles of different types. In addition, a video appeared on the internet showing a Ukrainian army submarine drone being fired upon by Russian ships, boats, and helicopters. Some of this information, supported by satellite images, was tried to be censored by the Russian authorities. It was claimed that as a result of the drone attack organized by the Ukrainian heroes, especially the Admiral Makarov frigate was damaged. But Russian authorities even ordered to turn off security cameras in the area where the drone attack took place in order to hide some information. As a result of this huge drone attack by the Ukrainian army, The Russian administration both damaged its reputation, and the Russian army had to accept the success of the Ukrainian heroes militarily. This historical success of Ukraine, which is followed very closely by all the states of the world, became very important for Crimea, because this victory of the Ukrainian army against the Russians opened the door of Crimea to Zelensky's brave warriors. History said that we should expect such a move from the Ukrainian heroes. Marines have always feared port attacks. The possibility of ships being attacked by anchoring, though often desperate, poses a threat not only to the integrity of the fleet, but to the entire naval force. While examples of port attacks have been plentiful throughout history, these port attacks became more complex in the 20th century, with a combination of technological and doctrinal innovations. Indeed, harbor attacks became quite important in World War I due to a combination of radio, aerial reconnaissance, short-range submarines, and defenses such as torpedo boats and ocean mines. During World War II, Navy tacticians devised several innovative ways to attack enemy ships when they were most vulnerable. After all this historical movement process, after Ukraine's attack on Sebastopol, the progress of the port attacks came to a position worth re-examining. The first and most notable submarine-led harbor attack took place on October 14, 1939. After the U-47 led by notorious Captain Gunther Preen infiltrated the British naval base at Scapa Flow. Using intelligence gathered by planes and other submarines, Preen entered the base at midnight through a gap at the British defense. After spotting a British battleship, U-47 launched a total of 7 torpedoes. 4 torpedoes launched by U-47 hit the warship, and 835 sank near Royal Oak in about 15 minutes. Preen, on the other hand, fled to meet a hero in Germany and died while on patrol in March 1941. But Preen's steps have been talked about throughout history. All these events showed us that we need to understand a truth. Since remotely operated drones could detect and attack targets directly, frogmen no longer needed to risk themselves in such operations. Submarines had already begun to play a role in such attacks, acting as motherships to submarine drones. Submarines could also launch cruise missiles and long-range torpedoes at ships' moorings, while aircraft carriers still held the striking power with which they could open up enemy naval units. In any case, the technologies the navies used to defend ports and the methods they used to attack them continued to evolve in response to each other. When we carefully examine the great drone attack of Ukraine on Sebastopol, we encounter the most advanced version of these historical events. Ukrainian heroes had developed port attacks by using this historical process to their advantage. And as a result, Zelensky's heroes achieved such a victory that the Ukrainian government is now expected to have a much greater say in Crimea. And even after the latest Ukrainian drone attack, the Russian administration began to fear other possible Ukrainian attacks. Crimea was very important for both sides of the war. In particular, Zelensky's clear and resolute statements about Crimea pointed out that there could be more Ukrainian attacks in this region. Ukrainian leader Zelensky, who made shocking statements about Crimea, said, "The war started in Crimea and will end in Crimea." Here are Zelensky's striking views on Crimea. For Russian leader Vladimir Putin, Crimea is one of the most critical regions. In fact, the region that Vladimir Putin cares about most is Crimea and its surroundings. But considering the latest situation, we can see that the Ukrainian heroes have become much more dominant in and around Crimea. While the Moscow administration embraced Crimea, it has now taken the position of defending this region. In the following processes, we will see together what will happen in the Crimea region, which has turned into a ring of fire. To be notified of new videos, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching us.